This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me again is Marc Souza. We got a lot to talk about over this weekend. We got Week 6 matchups to talk about, the great Sunday Night Football game. That'll be in the next segment, as well as the Monday Night Football matchup between the 49ers and Packers. We're also going to be talking about the NLCS and ALCS as those two series are heating up. And in the last segment, we'll probably be talking about college football and all those top 10 teams that have fallen in this last Saturday. So let's get into it. Week 6. What game would you like to talk about first, or do you want to just go in order here?
Well, we will save the Chiefs and Patriots conversation for the second segment.
Oh, yeah. That deserves its own segment.
We'll break that down in full detail. But there were some other games, some other notable games on Sunday, of course. Let's see. You know what? I think one of the big games yesterday, or one of the games that was talked about, was the Buccaneers and Falcons, just because both teams were really needing a win yesterday. We knew it was going to be a high-scoring game, so it did live up to that. 34-29, Falcons take the win at home. They improved to 2-4 as the Bucs fall to 2-3. Matt Ryan, 3 touchdown passes. Julio Jones had a really good game, but again, doesn't find the end zone. So what do you think? What was your takeaway from this game?
It kind of showed how Jameis Winston should be the number one quarterback for the Buccaneers instead of Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that debate's over. He threw for 395 yards, 30 of 41 with 4 touchdowns. He did have 2 picks, but you got to look at the positives on this one. He is the right man for the starting job. Yes, they failed to get the win, but they didn't go down like in a blowout or anything. It was a competitive matchup throughout. And I have to say, like, even though Julio Jones didn't score, he still had 10 receptions for 143 yards. So that's a very great game for him. But he still needs to go in that end zone, you're right.
Yeah, Matt Ryan definitely, I think, outperformed Jameis Winston. But both quarterbacks kept their teams in, put their teams in a position to win. I think Matt Ryan was a little bit more he was better at being safe with the football rather than Winston. Sometimes he can throw some interceptions like he did yesterday. But yeah, I thought it was a good game, interesting game, and ultimately the Falcons needed that game to stay in the NFC conversation. They got it. How about we go to Cincinnati, where the Bengals were hosting Pittsburgh. A very tight game throughout. Antonio Brown scores that late touchdown to give the Steelers a win, 28-21. What was your thoughts from this game?
Well, that one play with Antonio Brown scoring, it looked like the defense just let him score, which was, I don't know if it was lack of defense or they just wanted to get the offense a chance to score. I'm not sure what the situation was, but it felt like Pittsburgh was leading this game, not just on the scoreboard, but just offensively in general. They just seemed to had the upper hand. I mean, Roethlisberger did have 369 yards and a touchdown. Connor, who's been replacing Le'Veon
Bell.
Yeah, he had 19 attempts, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty good game for him. Smith-Schuster had 7 receptions for 111 yards. Antonio Brown had 5 receptions for 105 yards in that ending game touchdown. So this was a great game all around for Pittsburgh, and it just wasn't meant to be for the Bengals.
Yeah, it was a good game. Bengals, they'd probably love to have this one back. They had a good chance to win this game, but At the end, Antonio Brown makes that play. There was controversy whether it was a pick play or not, but it looked all right to me.
There was some blocking involved, it looked like.
Yeah, it looked all right to me. I think it was a good no call, but yeah, you said it.
Cincinnati would beg to differ.
James Conner, this might be his last game as the true starter for the Steelers, as Le'Veon Bell is expected to be back here in the next 2 weeks as they go into their bye week.
Yeah, he said he would return on their bye week, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means exactly, what getting back into shape. I'm not sure what his intentions are. But we have to talk about that Juju Smith-Schuster catch where his head hit right before the goal line. And I thought that was an interception. All of a sudden, he's rolling over and he has the football. I was pretty amazed by that. That was a very impressive circus catch.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that he was down at the one because top of his helmet's touching the ground.
I'm not sure if he had full possession of the ball. I think it might have been it could have been like them both having possession of the ball and he got away with it at the end zone. But what did he get to do with that?
Yeah. So interesting play to say the least.
I want to go on this next game. Bills and Texans. Then the quarterback, not Josh Allen, but Peterman. How is he a second string quarterback?
I don't know.
Is Josh Allen?
I don't think I've seen a quarterback have this worse of a start to a career than Nathan Peterman on the Bills. He throws a pick like every 4 or 5 passes. Like it's
bad.
It's actually that bad. Like I know that people.
Yeah,
I know that
his picks are terrible throws.
I know as fans we always say silly things like people who are like Cowboys fans, for example, like, oh man, Tony Romo throws an interception like every 5 or 6, but this guy actually does it. Like he actually, like I will break this down. Maybe when we go to break, I'll look it up, his career passes, but I feel like he's thrown like 12 interceptions to like maybe 100 passes. Like it's got to be that.
He went 6 of 12 and 2 interceptions. So 2 of his 6 passes were picked off.
It was another ugly game.
A third of his passes were picked off.
The Bills seem to keep playing these ugly games and not a whole lot of offense, but their defense is playing well. And then they had a really good chance to win this game until Allen got hurt and Peterman had to go in. Then it was just, no, we're not winning this game.
2 pick sixes, by the way.
Yeah, and it's actually
in
insane.
1 quarter. Like, it was like he wanted his team to lose.
How about we talk about
I just feel bad for the guy.
One of the biggest letdown games of the day, and that was the Chargers beating the Browns easily. I think we
38-14.
Yeah, I think we both thought that the Browns, maybe they wouldn't win this game, but it would be a good game. Like it'd be a solid, close game. But 38-14.
I thought it would be like a defensive matchup.
Yeah, and really the only defense that was being played was by the Chargers as they were frustrating Mayfield. It looked like he got a little hurt, too, as he ran out of bounds. It looked like he might have hyperextended his knee. He stayed in the game, but he definitely did not play well yesterday. He was 22 of 46, 238 yards, 2 interceptions, and 1 touchdown. He got sacked 5 times. Just not a good day for Baker Mayfield. I think when we see rookies come in, we expect these kinds of games every once in a while, and this was one of those games for him.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was a great game for the Chargers and their Charger fan base.
Melvin Gordon had another huge game.
Melvin Gordon was on 132 yards, 3 touchdowns speaks for itself.
The Browns had no answer for that outside toss that they ran to him where he scored, I think, 2 of his touchdowns, and he probably had half of his yards yesterday on those toss sweep plays.
The receivers also did those toss plays too, and they ran for like 10 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was just no answer. Yeah,
the Chargers just ran the ball for 246 yards. They ran all day, 6.8 yards per carry. Definitely not a Phillip Rivers game. It was more of a running game, control the ball and make the Browns punt the ball and turn the ball over. So, I think for people that were saying the Browns have turned the corner, this was a game that reminded them maybe they're still a ways away.
I would say in a year they're looking a lot better than they did last year for sure. But Baker Mayfield had one of his worst games, 22 of 46 for 238 yards and 2 picks and 1 touchdown.
How about one of the oddest games of the day, and that was Miami beating Chicago 31-28?
What happened with Chicago?
So Saturday,
their defense looked non-existent.
Saturday night, I'm hanging out with a buddy who's a big Dolphins fan, and he tells me, "Hey, you should bet on the Bears because Tannehill's injured, and it's not being reported, but people know about this because some guy on YouTube made a video and called him out, and then the Dolphins put Tannehill on the injury report the next day. And he was like, yeah, he's not going to play. Brock Osweiler is going to start, and then all of a sudden the betting line went from 2 points to 7 points in an hour or two.
It's like, oh, what's Brock Osweiler going to do? Throw 380 yards and 3 touchdowns?
And what do the Dolphins do? They go on and they win the game.
Frank Gore also had 100 yards rushing. He's way past his prime.
A Brock Osweiler and Frank Gore team beat a Khalil Mack defense yesterday.
Khalil Mack only had 2 tackles.
They neutralized him. They were definitely committed to stopping him. I saw them chipping him all the time, double teaming, triple teaming him. Give credit to the Dolphins. They did what they needed to do with a backup quarterback to win a game against a really good defense.
Both quarterbacks threw for 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it was an odd game, and then Kenyon Drake fumbles in overtime at the 1 yard line.
I thought the game was over there. I thought, it's like they just cost themselves the game, and all of a sudden I see a field goal.
Albert Wilson had that couple of those crazy long touchdowns where he looked like Tyreek Hill.
Who was that? I was like, who was that? He's not on anyone's fantasy team.
Funny enough is that he was on the Chiefs last year. So
was he really?
Yeah.
Probably behind Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill's the fastest man on the field.
Let's go across the pond as this was probably the worst performance I've seen.
My Lord, this game was awful.
The Oakland Raiders lost to Seattle 27-3. It was never close. Derek Carr had a terrible game. He threw for 142 yards on 31 attempts.
And no touchdowns or picks. And would you think about firing John Gruden after this? I know, obviously not.
Did you see the video of Carr crying on the field?
Yeah, that was bad.
This team is broken, man. Amari Cooper got injured, and they say that he's on the trading block. Now there's rumors that Derek Carr is available in a trade.
Marshawn Lynch went 13 attempts for 45 yards. I mean, that's not how do you...
I know a lot of Raider fans are excited about John Gruden coming back, but it just seems like since he's been there, it's just been
like
bad.
This team got worse.
They're arguably the worst team in the NFL. Arguably.
That's a good argument.
They're in the bottom 3, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in the bottom 3, it depends. You can have a bad game and boom, you're the worst.
If you lose to a post-Legion of Boom team in Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, the Seahawks defense gives up plays, gives up points, and the Raiders couldn't find anything yesterday. That was just incredible. What about another team with a putrid offensive performance? Their offense was offensive yesterday. The Tennessee Titans get shut out by the Ravens 21-0. They get sacked 11 times in this game. What do you make of the Titans? They've beaten good teams. They lost. Who they lose to? The Bills. I don't know what to make, man.
They want to be good and bad when they just don't care.
Speaking of bad quarterbacks, Mariota, 10 of 15, 117
they only gave him
yards.
15 passes compared to everyone else.
Well, he got sacked 11 times, so there's another 11 attempts that he could have had.
True. Well, that's a good point.
But he was, yes, he was
the
pressured.
Rushing game, there was only, 14, 15 rushes total between Henry and Lewis. Derrick Henry had 7 rushes, and Deion Lewis, had 5
They
rushes.
can't run the ball. This is the most disappointing offense in the NFL because they changed their offensive coordinator. They got Deion Lewis. Corey Davis is an absolute athletic stud, and they're not able to use these players effectively at all. And I hate to say this, but I'm not sure Mariota is a very good NFL quarterback. I'd be really worried if I was a Titans fan.
Lamar Jackson had a pretty cool play when he rushed for 22 yards, though.
He almost scored on that play.
He almost did. But even with this game, Joe Flacco still had only 238 yards passing, 1 touchdown.
They didn't really need to do a whole lot when the Titans aren't scoring.
He still did pedestrian for what it's worth.
He was fine. He was fine. The Ravens defense.
Do you put in Lamar Jackson in this do you give him one start this season?
No, not until they need to. If they continue to be, they're 4-2 right now. If they're in the playoff conversation, you can't just change. After this year, I think you reassess. You drafted Lamar Jackson for a reason, but as of right now, no, you keep it the same.
You want to talk about another weird game?
Yes.
Dallas and Jacksonville, 40-7. Dallas takes it. Prescott with only 183 yards passing with 2 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott rushed for 106 yards. So he almost rushed as much as Prescott threw, and this team just dominated 40-7.
I think it was a game where the Dallas defense dominated more. Like it looks 40-7. It looks like the offense put up a great game. I think the offense.
It was the defense.
I think the offense for the Cowboys was efficient. They were effective, and they did really well against a really tough defense. But for my money, Dallas defense really pressured Bortles.
They just had good field possession the entire game.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
And it might not show up all like Bortles.
Stats.
Bortles still had. He didn't have like a good game or a terrible game, but one thing that you don't really see is how many times a quarterback is pressured, which leads to incomplete passes and then punts. The Cowboys just dominated the game. Like Bortles couldn't do anything. He was sacked 3 times. He threw for 149 yards. They only ran for 65 yards. Just a great defensive performance by Dallas.
And speaking of great performances, the Los Angeles Todd Gurley's versus the Denver Broncos. I say the Todd Gurley's because 28 attempts, 208 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, yesterday
he had more rushing yards than Jared Goff had passing yards.
The weird thing about this game was that it was like feet of snow on the field before the game, and then the game started and it was gone.
I was like, what happened? I was so looking forward to a snow game.
And I'm thinking, like, it's way too early in the year to be having snow games, right? But
it's Denver, though.
Yeah, so definitely not a good game for the Rams offense, except for Gurley. I mean, their passing game. Cooper Kupp looks like he avoided major injury where he got tackled.
I thought that was like an ACL tear or something like that.
He came back in and then he left again, but he played. So
Todd Gurley averaged 7 yards a carry.
I think this game
he gets a first down every time he carries the ball twice.
My takeaway from this game is that it's not always going to be pretty for the Rams. Like, they're going to play games like this, but they found a way to win. They relied on Gurley. It's just a different way that they can win. It's always nice to be able to just hand the ball off to him. Denver played a decent game. I think they're better than a lot of people give them credit for, but that run defense is atrocious. Again, they allow running back to go over 200 yards against them. That's twice in a row.
Yeah, it was... This game, it looked like it was all Los Angeles, and then Denver started to make a comeback a little bit.
That Emmanuel Sanders play was terrible, too. He doesn't score the touchdown. They overturn it, and they still add the 15-yard penalty, and they don't end up scoring a touchdown on that drive.
Yeah, it was just all negative. It went downhill fast for Denver. But they did give it their all. They started to make a comeback. They only lost by 3, which they were down by a lot going into that second half. And so, looking at this game, like, Denver, yeah, they might not take the AFC West, but they're going to play competitive games throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, we have a couple more games to finish up, but we should do that after we take a quick break.
All right, if you say so.
And then we'll do that, and then jump right into last night's crazy game. I think it was everything that we expected it to be. We'll talk about the Chiefs, Patriots, and then also Monday Night Football next segment.
We'll get right on that.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We were going to talk about Week 6 of the NFL season. We're going to go continue on into it. Let's go with Jets and Colts, 42-34. Way more high scoring than I thought it was going to be. I think anyone else thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's
Andrew
another
Luck with
game.
300 yards passing. Sam Darnold with 280 yards passing. This was a very good game to watch, to be honest. And the Jets, looking like contenders for a possible AFC wildcard, don't you think?
Yeah, they continue to win these games. They're putting up points. I know this game looks like they gave up a lot of points because they gave up 34, but a lot of those points were late, and it didn't look like they were ever going to lose this game. They were in control early on. They were ahead by at least one score, sometimes 2 to 3 scores up on Indianapolis, especially in that third quarter when they went up 30-13, 17-point lead, and they continued to grind away, and they got another win. And it seems like this is going to be the Colts every week. They're going to get behind, and Andrew Luck's going to try and drag that team back. But at the end of the day, the Colts are just not as talented as their opponent most of the time.
Yes, unfortunately, that is the MO for the Colts. If you ask me, just close but not close enough.
Yeah, and it's like Luck had a great game. No T.Y. Hilton, but again, he's getting these guys like Chester Rogers and Eric Ebron and all these other receivers that no one really knows, and he's trying to lead them back, but they're just not good enough, in my opinion. What about in a game that I did not see coming, Washington beating Carolina, 23-17?
It felt like it was all Washington, huh? The score really doesn't speak for the performance that
I did not see that coming. Redskins had a lot of injuries coming into this game. Thompson was out. Peterson was banged up.
Peterson had 97 yards rushing. I mean, that's not bad for
a dislocated shoulder.
And just for a guy that's he's past his prime, as well as Vernon Davis, who's past his prime, who had 3 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown. He's usually non-existent when it comes to on-field offensive stuff, and he went in there, got a touchdown.
Impressive win by Redskins, considering that they got demolished on Monday Night Football by the Saints. And then their defense played really well yesterday. They stopped McCaffrey.
They stepped up.
Cam Newton had a couple good plays, like that touchdown to Funchess, where Funchess grabs the ball and holds it above the defender. But for the most part, it was a tough day for the Carolina offense, as Washington's defense, I think, really controlled them.
Yeah, I think Washington really stepped up their game. They're taking still control of the NFC East. If they continue to play like this, they will take the NFC East.
Yeah, absolutely. It's open right now. Anything can happen in the NFC East. The Cowboys won yesterday. Everything except for the Giants winning, right?
Yeah. And with the next game, it's Arizona versus Minnesota. Minnesota takes it 27-17. Kirk Cousins with 233 yards passing with only 1 touchdown and a pick. But this was a big rushing day for Murray, who had 155 yards and a touchdown with Delvin Cook being out. Once again. Yeah,
it looked like Cook was going to play, and then I guess in warm-ups, he didn't look as good as they thought, so he doesn't play. My takeaway here is that Adam Thielen is the most consistent player in the NFL in terms of wide receivers. Like, every game, it's the same. It's 100 yards, and it's a touchdown for him every single time.
He did get 15 targets compared to...
He gets them every week, though.
The second most targets was Diggs, who got 5 targets.
Yeah.
So he has 10 more targets than the next guy.
It's one of those things where we expect 10 catches minimum for Thielen, 100 yards minimum, and a touchdown every single game.
Obviously, Cousins, that's his go-to receiver.
Big time. Yeah, we'll see how Minnesota keeps progressing. Their defense had another solid game after the first few weeks of not looking like themselves. Granted, it was against a team that's a little bit limited on offense, but they took care of business, 27-17.
Now let's go to the fun game.
Let's talk about
Kansas City versus New England, 43-40, 83 total points between the two. So much offense. Holy offense.
This game lived up to the hype, unlike maybe the McGregor-Khabib fight. But this one,
there was less action in the stands.
Nobody fought into the crowd, in what there might have been, but none of the athletes went in there. But okay, let's talk about it. This game went kind of the way that I thought it was going to be, a high-scoring game. I thought the Patriots would win just because they're at home, and it's hard to beat Tom Brady at home. Both quarterbacks had great games. They both showed out. And showed why that both these teams could be potential AFC representatives in this year's Super Bowl. Kareem Hunt and Sony Michel. For me, even though Mahomes and Brady had great games.
Sony Michel had a great game. 106 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns.
And then
He was a
Kareem
huge
Hunt.
moment.
Kareem Hunt went crazy too with 105 receiving yards added on to his 80 rushing yards. He was a monster. Tyreek Hill was a monster. 3 touchdowns.
142 yards receiving.
It's just so easy sometimes for Kansas City. Like with Kelsey, Hill, and Hunt.
There's so much talent. There's so much talent on this Kansas City team.
And the crazy thing is that Hunt was missed a couple times for other touchdowns too.
Yeah, that was pretty crucial. I think that will be looked in film. But one thing I have to ask. We've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. When Kansas City's up there at the highest peak, but after that first loss every year, they go on a very steep downhill slide. Do you think this is where the slide's going to happen, or do you think it's going to stay up there?
I expect this year to be different. I don't think that they have, like last year I thought they were fool's gold a little bit because Alex Smith was their quarterback, and he's more of like a mediocre quarterback. I thought he was playing just above his head a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I think Mahomes is the real deal, and I think that he showed again last night why this team is so dangerous, especially on offense.
Right. This was the game of the week.
I actually thought that New England played well defensively, and they got 40 points scored against them, which is crazy.
You don't really look at the defense when you think of an 83 points between the two teams, but this game was great, no doubt about it. High scoring, high flying throughout the entire games. Both teams show that, you said it, they're both AFC contenders still. This might be the AFC Championship game when all things are said and done.
You talked about the Chiefs having maybe going into like a losing streak because they have this MO of them losing a game and then it kind of like snowballs a little bit. We're going to find out this weekend. They play Cincinnati on Sunday Night Football, so it's another tough game for the Chiefs.
Back-to-back Sunday Night Football games.
But they will be at home this time, and I expect a good game against the Bengals, but we'll see what they're made of this Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a proving game for sure when they play Cincinnati. Okay, a game we have to talk about is now we can move to Monday Night Football. We want tonight between the 49ers and the Green Bay Packers. This game's not going to be as, I think, highlighting as the other Sunday Night Football game we just witnessed.
No, not at all. And I think that we're going to see Aaron Rodgers rely on the run game a lot tonight. I expect the Packers to try and get the lead early and then lean on their running backs like Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams to see out a win. I know that Rodgers, he suffered a setback this week with his knee. So apparently he's going to be wearing a bigger brace. I know he's not 100%.
Hopefully he doesn't have to rely on Mason Crosby too much.
Yeah, it's definitely a get-right game for Mason Crosby, as I'm sure they'd like to see him make all of his kicks and eliminate what happened last week from his memory. For the 49ers...
That'll stay in his head, guaranteed.
For the 49ers, it doesn't look like Matt Breida is going to play, and if he doesn't, that really hurts their offense, what they have left of it anyways.
This team is the most injured team in football. Has to be, right?
Yeah, so...
This team could be contenders if they had everyone healthy, because they have talent.
So if Breida doesn't play tonight, you have your starting quarterback, your starting running back.
Who's been playing relatively decent at running back for them.
Right.
Nothing special, but it's decent.
But if Breida doesn't play, you have your starting quarterback, your starting running back, your second-string running back, all out of this football game, of course.
Third string running back, actually.
Yeah.
Because McKinnon, it was their one at one point.
And you have Garoppolo, of course, and McKinnon out for the season. So, tough times, tough year for the 49ers.
Much hope for that team.
Yeah, they looked good in the offseason with the moves they made. They looked like they'd actually be a team that could be 8-8 or maybe even better, depending on the season. But, yeah, I don't know really what to say about tonight's game other than it's going to be a tough game for that 49ers defense as Aaron Rodgers looks to have his receivers back. Geronimo Allison might play. Randall Cobb is expected to play. So the Packers are getting a little bit healthier, minus Aaron Rodgers. But if they can keep him upright, I think they'll be fine tonight.
Who do you have in this game?
I will say that Green Bay will win 27-20.
You're giving Niners 20. Okay, 20 points. I understand the Packers' defense is nothing to write home about. Neither is if Aaron Rodgers plays, I see a high-scoring game on one end. But I'm going to go Green Bay also. I'll say 24-10.
24-10.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, we're going to take a short break. But when we get back, we'll talk about the ALCS and the NLCS as both those series are heating up, and we'll get right on that when we get back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished talking about Week 6 of the NFL season, as well as the Monday Night Football matchup tonight. Now we're going to go on to baseball and the NLCS and the ALCS. We'll start with the NLCS. Series is tied at 1-1. Brewers took Game 1. Dodgers took Game 2. They're playing Game 3 tonight. What do you think of the series so far?
I mean, it's been a great series so far. The first game really started things off there with that one-run win by the Brewers at 6-5. And then, of course, the Dodgers come back and get that one-run win 4-3. I think the series has been good so far, exciting, back and forth. It looks competitive. From what we've seen in the first two games, I think that we can assume this series will probably go 6, maybe 7 games. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. If this goes back and forth like this, it's definitely going 6-7 games. I still have the Brewers taking this. What about you?
Yeah, I still like the Brewers to win this series, although I think they made a big mistake in Game 1, and I'll talk about that in a second. But how about we talk about Kershaw giving up that home run to the relief pitcher Woodruff in Game 1? That guy smoked it off of Kershaw.
That was a pretty darn impressive hit, that's for sure.
That was insane. It was cool to see not just a pitcher, but a relief pitcher. They never get to hit.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting to say the least how he let hit. Basically, it was a meatball almost to him. But bottom line is that's got to put a damper on Kershaw in his career or his postseason career.
Again, again, third inning and fourth inning, he gives up 5 runs in that game. Just another outing in the postseason that Clayton Kershaw wishes that he could have back.
There's something he's always gonna have to remember, or always gonna haunt him is his postseason performances. There's a big issue with that compared to I guess his rival will be Madison Bumgarner in his historic postseason performances. Yeah. So we saw the Dodgers come back in Game 2. Justin Turner had that huge 2-run homer in the 8th inning to give the Dodgers the lead at 4-3 in that game. After they fell behind 3-0, then Dodgers scraped 2 in the 7th. But of course, the 8th inning comes. Justin Turner gets that big home run. It went downhill from there.
Yeah, they get that big home run, and this time the Dodgers bullpen closes out the game as Kenley Jansen comes in the game and is able to put the Brewers away. Maybe a little bit nervy at the end, but again, just a missed opportunity for the Brewers. They just won the night before. You got that quick turnaround as they have the day game the next day. They go up 3-0, and then they drop it. And that vaunted bullpen of Milwaukee gives up the game, which was interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting turnaround for the Dodgers, definitely. So we have the Game 3 today. Who do you see taking it?
Let's see. I'm not sure, but I want to add something before I give you my prediction.
Go for it.
And that was, I think Craig Counsell showed his inexperience as a manager, and it cost the Brewers the game in Game 2.
Okay.
You want to know why that is?
And why is that?
Because in Game 1, I think he pitched Josh Hader 1 inning too long. He pitched him 3 instead of 2. And because he pitched that extra inning, it made him unavailable for Saturday's Game 2. And what happened in that game? They gave up 2 runs in the 7th, 2 runs in the 8th. That's usually Josh Hader's spot to go get those outs in pressure situations. They give up 4 runs. They lose the game. And his best pitcher never sees the field in Game 2 because he pitched just a little too long in Game 1. What do you think about that?
You could say that. You could say his arm was getting tired. You could say stamina and all this stuff.
Well, yeah, because he pitched too long in Game 1. Like, if he would have pitched 30 pitches, he would have been available for Game 2, but he pitched 46 pitches in Game 1, so...
Well, I think it's a certain situation where it's his first time in the postseason.
Yes.
Craig Counsell, that is, in that. And what's happening is he's just trying to figure out, he's trying to find as much momentum as possible. He's trying to just find ways to win that game. He doesn't really look at it like he's looking at the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. She's trying to win the game that's right there in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. And bottom line is the Brewers are still a talented team. They're not out of this by a long shot. They can still take this Game 3 and improve and try to get to that World Series, which will be very... it will be Cinderella story-like, I would say.
Yeah. So what do you think about tonight's game? We have Chassin against Bueller for the Dodgers. Do you see the Dodgers taking this one?
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I see this series as going back and back and back and forth when it comes to one win. So I'm going to say the Brewers take this and go 2-1.
Yeah, Walker Bueller, he is a young pitcher. We will see what happens. The kid is good. He's a rookie. He's looked good this year, but he did have a shaky performance against the Braves. He did give up that grand slam in that game. So we'll see what happens in this game with his biggest game of his life tonight against Milwaukee, against guys like Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain. So did you say who you thought was going to win?
Oh, yeah, the Brewers. I said this is going to be a back and forth series, like one game. So I see the Brewers taking this.
I think the Dodgers will win tonight, but I think it will be another high-scoring one-run game. I would say 6-5 or so.
6-5? Okay.
Yeah, that's something like that.
I'm not going to give my prediction because every time I get a prediction, I never get the score right, but I'll just say Brewers take this.
Okay. So let's shift over to the American League, where we saw the Astros come out in Game 1, smack the Red Sox around 7-2. It looked like a real good statement game for them as they blew that thing wide open in the 9th before the Red Sox could go up there and try and salvage the game. 7-2. But what was your takeaway from Game 1 of the ALCS?
It kind of showed that this wasn't going to be the most competitive of the two series, like just high scoring wise and just based off how good these two teams are. These are the best two teams in baseball at the moment, and I honestly have no idea who's going to take this series. This series is just too close to call, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we saw Verlander outduel Chris Sale, so that was interesting. It was Sale who was hospitalized, right?
Yeah,
he has like a virus or something like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious. I don't know how serious the situation is, but it seems like it's. I would put it as I would worry.
Yeah, Chris Sale was very wild in Game 1, so I'm not sure if that was a factor. But it's interesting. So I think we both thought that the Red Sox were going to win Game 1, but the Astros take it 7-2. Were you thinking after that game, like, okay, maybe the Houston's going to win the series, or did it change your opinion after Game 1?
It's still so close to call. It's too close to call. I know the games are not like one-run games or anything like that, but like the Astros won pretty handily. it's all going to come down to, like, I think this is going to go 7. I think both series are going to go 7, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so if you're a fan in the New England area, you were given an American League Championship Series game yesterday, and you were given Tom Brady and the Patriots in the same night. So it was possible, if you lived out that way, that you could have attended both games.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, but the Red
a lot
Sox,
of money out of your pocket, but still.
The Red Sox come back in Game 2 yesterday, and they win 7-5. They even up the series. Garrett Cole, he takes the loss in this one. What do you think of Boston's bounce back in Game 2? Game 2 is usually, if you lose Game 1, it's like a you got to have it type game, you know? It's not a must win, but it's one of those like, hey, we got to get this ship righted. So
yeah, you got to get back on the horse and just move on from the previous loss. Both the Brewers and the Red Sox, I mean.
And a David Price pitched team finally won a game in the postseason. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah. That's took long enough, right?
Mm-hmm. So what'd you make of that game? 7-5. The Boston does go behind, but then they quickly regain the lead in the third inning. Any notables that you want to talk about?
No, just I'm looking forward to the next games.
Okay, so let's talk about it. The next game will actually be tomorrow, Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Will be Game 3. We have Eovaldi on the mound against Dallas Keuchel. What do you see in this game?
All things considered, I still have the Red Sox taking the series, and I'm going to say they take this game and bounce back up in the series. This is gonna be a statement series, that's for sure.
So you think Red Sox will win this game?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm going with Houston in this game. I see runs though. I don't think Eovaldi and Keuchel will be able to keep these high-powered offenses from getting on the board. And I think you mentioned it. You said it before. Is that we're seeing runs in this series. Whereas the Dodgers and Brewers might be more of a pitching series, this is more of a hitting series.
Absolutely. The two best hitting teams in the league at the moment. And you put the Yankees up there, but I think more consistently in positive hitting, Red Sox are the better hitters.
So were you nervous yesterday, or were you expecting something to happen when Kimbrel faced Bregman with a runner on yesterday in the 9th?
Worried, I was just more intrigued.
Because Bregman's a man of the moment. Like, he
Absolutely.
likes that spot.
He loves being clutch. And
he barely missed it. He barely missed it where he flied out to left field.
Like, honestly, just 1 inch higher, lower, it's gone.
Yeah, maybe not even that much. He just hit it off the end of the bat, where if he gets a sweet spot on that ball.
He almost did.
Yeah, he was right on it. So it'll be interesting to
see.
It
wasn't even a good pitch. It was just he just missed it by that much.
Jeff, it'll be interesting to see if we the next time if we see these two guys in another key spot. Obviously, Kimbrel's a closer, so every time he pitches, it's going to be a key spot. But if we see Bregman against Kimbrel again in this series, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This series can turn on a dime.
But I think we're gonna see those two in another tough spot to maybe determine the series. It'll be something to look out for. So you have the Red Sox though winning Game 3. So you like Eovaldi against Keuchel? You think the Red Sox might have the advantage there, or do you think it's more of a team thing? Like it's more of a
team thing.
Like, hey, we're gonna go down there and make a statement Game 3.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's my point.
Gotcha. So, but do you see it'll be like a high scoring game like the last couple?
Yeah. I don't see these teams scoring like 1 or 2 runs. I see 4 or 5 max. Or not max, but 4 or 5 minimum.
I think both series being at 1-1, heading into Game 3s and Game 4s and things like that, like for fans like us, I think it was a great weekend because we went into the weekend not knowing which one of these two teams or which two of these teams would emerge, and we still don't know. So yeah, it leaves a lot to be excited for.
Oh yeah, this is definitely this is where baseball gets more and more fun.
And then, so Game 3 for Dodgers Brewers will be tonight. Red Sox, Astros will go tomorrow during the day. And Brewers, Dodgers game 4 tomorrow too. So definitely we will know more.
Beautiful time for baseball.
Yeah.
October is always great for baseball.
Yeah, but other than that, we should go ahead and take a break. We come back, we'll talk about some crazy college football games that happened,
Oh, yeah.
a shakeup in the top 5. We'll talk about other notable college football games and other things in the world of sports that happened this past weekend.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished talking about the NFL Week 6 matchups and also the NLCS and ALCS matchups. And then we previewed Monday Night Football. Now we're going on to college football. And my word, it was a very wild week in college football. A lot of top 10 losses and a lot of changing in the top 25 for sure. The main one I think I want to talk about is LSU beating number 2 Georgia, moving from 13 to back to number 5 as if nothing ever happened.
Crazy. LSU loses a week prior to Florida, but this time they are at home, and wow, what a signature performance. What a signature win for this team, for this defense, as LSU really shows character here. They lose that game against Florida, but they come back and they knock off number 2 Georgia. And it was a statement game. What would you say?
Absolutely. But I want to name you, I'm going to list every single top 25 team that lost. You ready?
Shoot for it.
Number 19, Colorado lost to USC 31-20. Wisconsin lost to number 12. Number 15, Wisconsin lost to number 12, Michigan 38-13 in a slaughter. Number 16, Miami gets upset by Virginia 16-13. West Virginia, number 6, gets upset by Iowa State 30-14. Number 2, Georgia loses to LSU like we talked about 36-16. Unranked Michigan State beats number 8 Penn State 21-17. Number 7 Washington gets upset by number 17 Oregon 27-30 in overtime. Let's see. Oh yeah, and Auburn loses to Tennessee 30-24.
Did you mention Colorado too?
Yes, that was the first game I mentioned.
Yeah, gosh. You're right. A lot of movers and shakers.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 top 25 teams lost.
Yeah, it was a slaughter fest for the top 25 as we see some shakeup. We see Notre Dame, and they barely hung on against Pitt. They were, predicted to win by multiple touchdowns. They win at the end there 19-14, so they almost lose, but they move up by getting the win. Yeah, it's just crazy. They're right behind them. Penn State and West Virginia lose. Michigan had a statement win. I thought that it was impressive that they beat Wisconsin. Harbaugh's he's a good coach, but he's been lacking those statement wins in college football since he's returned. Yeah,
he's definitely struggled. Like, he's kind of like that coach that can't win the big one almost. Like, yeah. He lost the Super Bowl with the 49ers, lost multiple NFC title games. Now hasn't really been able to get it done with Michigan. Do you think he's like a coach that just can't win the big one or will never win the big one?
I just think that it's a lot more difficult than people think. That like, oh, he's a great coach. He'll just go to this new school or new program and everything will just be like it was when he was at Stanford or like it was when he was with the 49ers. Like he's just going to be super successful everywhere he goes. I think that Jim Harbaugh is a very good football coach, but he can rub people the wrong way. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. You always wonder when there's a guy who's known for kind of being hard on his players or like kind of tight with his players.
Like a players coach, you're saying?
Yeah, because he's like not really a players coach, I would say. But it's one of those things too.
He comes off as one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you wonder like what the temperature is in the locker room, like when he's not around. You know what I mean? Like. Are players cold? Are players loose? Are they? You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I get what you're getting. I'm seeing where you're getting at.
I guess my overall point is Jim Harbaugh strikes me as the kind of coach where at some point in his career, people might say, "The game is just different now, and your mentality or your way of coaching doesn't work." You know? So
maybe
we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
I don't think it's at that point yet. I think
no, not at all.
For Harbaugh, he's still got a very good job, or still his job is very secure at the moment. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that was a great win. Oregon beating Washington. We talked about that game. I liked Oregon. You liked Washington, but we knew it was going to be a tight game. Oregon was at home. That was probably the difference in that game.
Yeah, it's the thing is this was like obviously a statement game, like you said. Wisconsin didn't really show up for this game. Michigan's back in the top 10. I don't know if they're going to make it into the top 4 and make a playoff spot, but this definitely brings up hope for Michigan in the future. Yeah,
so then, of course, back to Michigan. Great win for them. If they get right heading into the remaining games on their schedule. And also what we talked about with Washington and Oregon. Oregon takes the win there. That was impressive to see. Do you have the rankings up, Jeff?
Hold on.
That's all right.
I do.
Just go ahead and pull those up, and I'll talk about Texas. They beat Baylor. They remain in the top 10 with a 23-17 win. UCF, Central Florida, of course. They continue their dominance. They barely get the win, 31-30 over Memphis, but they do. So
I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and give me the top 10 as it stands now?
All right, you want to guess who's number 1?
Sure, I'll guess. Alabama?
Good guess, that's correct. Number 2?
Ohio State.
Correct. Number 3?
Let's see.
You have 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7,
Clemson?
6. Correct. Number 4.
Notre Dame.
Correct. Number 5.
Well, you said LSU.
Yeah. Number 6.
I am not sure. I'll say Texas.
Michigan is number 6. Number
Michigan,
7.
They jump all the way to 6, huh?
Number 7 is Texas. Number 8 is Georgia from their loss.
Ooh, I think that's too high.
Really? Okay.
To get beat like that?
Hey, dropping 6 spots is a lot.
Yeah, but to get beat like that?
Okay, granted. Number 9 is Oklahoma.
Okay.
And number 10 is UCF.
So UCF didn't move up.
Other notable rankings, Oregon moves up to number 12
No
from
respect
17.
for Central Florida. They win and they don't move up.
Their schedule is pretty weak.
They win, but they don't move up.
Granted. By the way, other notable entries in the top 25, Oregon moves up to 12. West Virginia moves down to 13 from number 6. Washington, number 7, goes down to 15. Kentucky's number 14, so they're better than Washington at the moment. A surprising
Kentucky, that's a school you don't see in the top 25.
Carolina State is number 16. Penn State is number 18 now. South Florida moves up to 21 from number 23. Wisconsin drops to number 23. Michigan State is now 24, and a new team in the top 25. Washington State is now number 25.
The Cougars.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
You're like that guy that's like, I know football. I know that team.
The Cougs. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. I agree with most of that. I don't know if I'd have Michigan that high. Mm-hmm. Like they had a good win, but they should have won, right? Like I don't know. They were at home.
Yeah, but it was a big blowout. That was, I think, why they got ranked so high up.
Yeah. I'm okay with those rankings. Obviously, we only have Well, we have a few undefeated teams. NC State is technically undefeated, but Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame. I'm not sure what to really make of the top 4 as it stands now. Obviously, I think Alabama is just a step ahead of everybody, but we will kind of see how it shakes out.
Do you think Alabama is like considered overrated because they haven't really had a game like against a formidable opponent yet?
Maybe so, but their resume kind of speaks for itself. Like every time they play in a big game, they seem to win.
Okay, I just wanted to bring up that point. That
if you're looking at it only year to year, like if you only look at their games this year, then maybe because they haven't really gotten to the meat of their schedule yet, you know. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the players on our team, like they're insane.
Yeah.
So.
As for next week, Alabama's playing Tennessee, and then the week, and then just looking at the week, and then week 10 is their biggest opponent. They're facing LSU.
That will be a notable game. If LSU can continue to win, Alabama continues to win, it could probably be like 1-2 at that point, or 1-3 at that point.
Yeah. But after that, like week 12, they're playing Citadel. 1-4 at the moment, Citadel.
Yeah, I wonder how many.
They have a pretty weak schedule, all things considered, don't you think?
Yeah, well, we haven't even.
They're playing a 1-win team going into week 12.
Yeah,
like they should be playing some formidable opponents, not tune-up games.
So I wanted to talk about to wrap up our show today.
Okay.
Tom Brady scores that touchdown last night where he rushes into the end zone, where he kind of alludes that Breeland Speaks, linebacker for the Chiefs. It looked like he was wrapped up, and then it looked like he let him go, and then Tom Brady somehow crawls his way into the end zone, it feels like, because it took 5 seconds to run 4 yards for Tom Brady there. But what do you think about that play? Because Breeland Speaks after the game said he thought that he had thrown the ball and he was worried about getting roughing the passer penalty.
I think he's making an excuse.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think he just missed him?
Yeah. I think he messed. He
I don't know.
He had like a brain fart or something like that. But bottom line is he was making an excuse why he didn't make the tackle.
I see what you're saying, but I disagree. I don't think Tom Brady's very elusive, and I don't think that he really got away from Breeland Speaks as opposed to Breeland Speaks letting up. Mm-hmm. It just brings in, the conversation of, are these rules over the top? Now players are trying to avoid sacking a quarterback, maybe. Obviously, we can disagree on maybe this play in particular, but we can both probably agree that the rules that are currently in place for defenders, for defensive ends, for linebackers, it just makes it so they're going to be penalized more times than not, and then it affects their aggressiveness, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would definitely think so. I think that's been a factor for all teams when it comes to sacking the quarterback. But overall, I think they'll adapt to it quicker than we expect. But I do think the rules should be a little more formidable when it comes to tackling them. Like
they should be a little bit more common sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think it should be a little less aggressive when it comes to full body on the opponent or something like that.
Can we get rid of the rule in the NFL where if you touch a quarterback's helmet, it's a personal foul? Like when you go to block a pass and your hand grazes his face mask, I hate that penalty. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not talking about the late hits, okay? I'll give you those all day. But I'm talking about, Jeff, you're in the pocket. I'm rushing you.
Okay, I'm in the pocket.
You're in the pocket. You're looking downfield, right?
Yeah.
I'm rushing you, but the lineman in front of me is keeping me from sacking you. So I put my hand up to block the throw.
How dare you? How dare you try to block my pass?
I try and block the pass. I come down because my natural motion is for my arm to drop, and I graze the side of your helmet.
Well, that hurt. That hurt me. That physically put a toll on me.
I think it's those penalties, though, that are the most frustrating because it's one thing to land on a quarterback and things like that. And we can argue about, he was trying to put his body weight on him or things like that. But it's those little ticky-tack ones that I think are the worst. But that's all I got for sports today. Do you have anything else that you would like to say, Jeff?
I enjoyed a little rant there, to be honest. But I do think that's all we have time for today. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about the NFL Week 6. We talked about the NLCS and ALCS. We've talked about college football and all those things. And I think that's what we'll call it a day. Tune in tomorrow. We'll be talking about more of the ALCS and NLCS previews of those games and the the game 3 matchup today. And we'll talk about Monday Night Football outcome.
Recap of Monday Night Football.
And we will be back tomorrow. See you then.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.